and I had decided that, yeah, okay, we'll go ahead and try this movie business. Harry seemed like a decent guy. Everything seemed like it was on the up and up. Cool. So he flew us out to California, and we were scheduled to make a movie. We had like 3 or 4 days to get used to LA, and then we were going to start shooting. Well, Murphy's Law, you know how it is. If something can go wrong, it will. So Harry liked to work with certain people. In particular, he liked to work with a certain cameraman. And this cinematographer was busy. He had booked this other thing, and it went overtime. And it went overtime by a week because it was a feature film. It wasn't just a porn film, right? So this shoot, you know, it was lasting months, and it went over by a week. So we had to take our schedule and move it back. Okay, I understand. You know, if you have ever been in a situation where you're doing something creatively like photography or making movies or something, and you have somebody that you've worked with before and you like the way they do things and you get along well personally and you like their work, you were stuck with it. I understand that. So, okay, however, we're stuck in LA. What are we supposed to do in the meantime? How are we supposed to survive? You know, how are we supposed to pay for a hotel? How are we supposed to eat? You know, obviously you're not going to pay me to just sit there and do nothing. Well, okay, so he had me work in these peep shows. Harry owned several clubs. Well, they were peep shows and bookstores where they sold, you know, pictures and magazines, and they had peep shows in the back where you'd drop $1 or whatever, and the window would go up or the curtain would go up, and behind the glass you could see a girl dancing or doing whatever. And that's where I worked for a week. It was different, but it was a unique experience. And I got to meet some of the girls, and they were very friendly and nice. And so that was that. Well, it turns out that this cinematographer's shoot was still not done. It was going to go on another month. So what am I supposed to do? So he says, I'll call somebody and we'll get you work modeling. I'm like, what do you mean modeling? He's like, you know, posing for men's magazines. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, I can do that. Yeah, sure. So he calls Jim South. Now, I don't know if you are familiar with who Jim South is, but he unfortunately, he's passed. He was the go-to agent in the business back in the 80s and 90s. And he was the one who booked all of the talent. If they weren't under contract with a film company and they were an actress or an actor looking to make a movie, he would get them the gigs to work in the movies. And also, he did the men's magazines. So I posed for Hustler, Chic, Genesis, Sherry, Club. Gosh, I can't remember all of them, but just about every magazine you could name that was around back in the day, I posed for. And this was great fun. I worked with different photographers, different makeup artists. I learned what to do and what not to do when it came to posing and makeup and all kinds of stuff like that. And it was doing one of these shoots that I met Ginger Lynn. Some of these shoots had you working with another girl. And one of the girls that I worked with was Julia Parton. Don't know if you remember her or not, but she was well endowed, and she the billing was that she was Dolly Parton's country cousin. Well, the truth was there was no relation at all, but she did, resemble her in a little bit. She never made any movies, but she was a great model, and she was fun to work with. And then I did this layout with Ginger and a guy, and the premise was that this guy and I were Mexican, and we were at the border, and she was coming through with a suitcase full of dildos. So we take her to the back room and, happiness ensues. So this was a good shoot, but what really struck me was Ginger, because she had this book, this little notebook, and it was quite thick. And in it, she had everything. I mean, everyone she worked with, she would get their names and their phone numbers so she could keep in contact with them. And she had addresses and directions on where to go to get to different places. And it was all right at her fingertips in this notebook. And I thought, that's really clever. She's very smart. So I started to do that, and it really proved to be very helpful. But Ginger inspired me. She's very organized and a very wonderful lady, very kind, very sweet to work with. And we're still friends today. I mean, we don't talk very frequently because we just don't have a reason to. But she and I got along very well and always have.